Fostering Leadership is made possible by the generous donations of the Foster Foundation and Artie and Sue Buerk.
Hi, I'm Nick Perleros, your host for Fostering Leadership. We often hear about the importance of core values and guiding principles for business success. But how did these values and principles work to either shape or potentially inhibit one's practice of leadership? This week, we'll delve a little deeper into the topic of leadership by looking at organizational structure and its effect on leadership. How does the culture of an organization sustain the growth and development of effective leadership? Our stories cover a range of business types and sizes, from a nonprofit microlender to a former president of an iconic Seattle brand, from a well-known national outdoor retailer to a new small company that's committed to their community. Okay, let's get started. This week, we asked folks, what is the value of an organizational chart?
The value in an organizational chart is as a communication device for people to understand how decisions get made and to give them a path forward.
Structure has value. People sort of need to know, how are we organized?
You know, when you go to present to investors or whatever it happens to be, they're always interested, well, you know, who's this, who plays this role, all those kinds of things. And so the first thing you pull out is the organization chart.
If you ask me to provide an organizational chart for you right now, I probably couldn't do it.
We've got org charts. I'm not sure that we look at them a ton, but we do have org charts here.
You know, they're always there. Okay, here's the organization chart. Read it, everybody look at it. Okay, now ignore it.
We don't spend a lot of time producing those things and publishing them and hanging them on the wall. Everybody kind of knows who the bosses are around here.
You can never tear them up, you know, because everybody wants to know, okay, where are they in the organization?
Anybody that thinks that the organization chart clearly defines exactly what happens or who the real players are, it's just not a rational conclusion.
So perhaps with the org chart, it's important to know how to use it to understand the structure of a business, and even more important, to not let it get in the way of effective leadership. Inspiration can come from lots of places. After attending a talk given by Nobel Peace Prize winner Dr. Muhammad Yunus, and subsequently reading his book, Banker to the Poor, Sammy Rayner knew what was next for her.
There's something that just tells you when it's the right opportunity for you to go for, that you have to do it. Lumana is really focused on growth and acceleration of small businesses in developing countries. We do that by very, very close collaboration with community leaders in Ghana. There's two startups, in a sense, the Ghana side of the operation and the US side. We have 6 core staff. 2 of them are in Ghana and 4 of us are here. In Ghana, we're actually just opening up 2 new offices in the next couple of months, just because it's so important to have a storefront in the community where people can come and talk to us at any time. I think that being young is really a positive, and also being a woman has really kind of shaped part of how the community interacts with us. That not being someone of extreme power, an elder, kind of enables them to see me as a peer and to be more open in collaboration, which is a really important part of our model. The most important part about our organizational structure staying fairly flat is a whole part of our vision is bringing up these leaders who haven't ever been in a position of power in their community, especially women aren't traditionally given any roles. And so I think that instilling that value across the company, that anyone can be a leader, anyone can step up. One client, she went through the pilot in 2008. She was always first in class, didn't speak hardly any English. Most of our clients don't. And I just loved watching her grow. Someone who had started at $100, now she's paid back 4 loans already, been a leader of her cooperative group. And the last time I went back, she had 3 other women that she'd hired and had been introduced to her trade, which is fishmongering. So she salts and dries fish from the seashore and sells them in the market. The ingenuity of some of our clients blows me away. To date, our repayment has stayed pretty close to 95% on all of our loans, and we've been able to keep a high success rate by being very involved with the community. In terms of our client growth, we're focusing on what we call the Lumana Leadership Accelerator, and that will focus on a second round of training for our successful clients, and we're really looking at job creation as one of our big goals for 2011.
Too big to fail. That refrain has been heard a lot recently. But how about too big to even adjust? Too outsized to react to a sliding economy and a changing world. That's the backstory behind General Motors' fall from the pinnacle of automotive manufacturing.
GM was once the largest automobile company on the planet. Today, the one-time behemoth is a shadow of its former self. But there was a day when GM was synonymous with success and luxury. A GM plant in your town brought prosperity and bragging rights. The company built Detroit into an automotive mecca. But after reaching a peak market share of 51% in the 1960s, GM gradually went from steamrolling giant to slow-lane sloth. What were once strengths, a rigid corporate structure, disciplined management, and an ever-broadening product line, slowly became serious weaknesses. GM seemed unaware, or perhaps unwilling to admit, that they were severely testing the amount of pressure their corporate tires could withstand. GM had lost its mojo, no longer able to anticipate what American consumers wanted in a car. The market was changing, GM was not. Meanwhile, Japanese automakers were tuned in and listening. The quality of their cars was surpassing that of GM's. They were building small, economical, and highly reliable cars, and they were putting them on ships bound for the USA. It wasn't too long before Honda and Toyota became kings of the road, sending their big American competitor careening toward the ditch. Adding insult to lack of vision, GM was late and nearly missed the SUV phenomenon, trailing their homegrown competitors Ford and Chrysler by nearly 5 years in bringing a sport utility vehicle to market. GM had churned through leaders almost as fast as it had lost market share, and had become a place known for bloated bureaucracy and internal turf battles. In late 2008, GM's CEO Rick Wagner and his Big Three colleagues pleaded with Washington for federal aid. GM was desperate, having lost $30 billion that same year. An emergency federal bailout pumped billions into GM, and the market reacted immediately. GM stock dropped 31%. Less than a year later, Wagner was meeting with President Obama's Auto Task Force, again seeking a financial lifeline. An infusion of tens of billions brought mandates and conditions, namely that the U.S. government would become the majority owner and that the company must radically restructure, starting with the ouster of Wagner and many members of the board of directors. 40 years of non-stop decline resulted in a bankruptcy filing in May 2010. GM's fall was complete. Government-mandated changes did in 3 months what the company was unable to accomplish itself over several decades: restructure, refocus, and reinvent. GM, too big, or perhaps just too bureaucratic and bullheaded to change. Stay tuned for more of Fostering Leadership.
This week we visit with the former president of Starbucks Coffee, Howard Behar. During his many years with Starbucks, Howard helped establish the Starbucks culture, which stresses the importance of people over profits. As his book title says, it's not about the coffee.
Well, I have a quote on my office wall that goes like this: there are no stressful situations, only stressful responses. And I think it's really true.
The theme of our show, the bricks and mortar of leadership, made for an interesting Q&A with a leader who passionately lives his principles.
What do you think of organizational charts, and do they hold any value?
Organizational charts, they kind of can be a roadmap. They help people understand maybe sometimes their roles. They, can set some direction, but the truth of the matter is they kind of get in the way. I think the less you have of that stuff, the better off you are. And when people can participate, no matter what their level is, no matter what their title is, they can participate in the decision-making process, where they have expertise, of course. That's better than any organizational chart.
I've heard you say that leadership is about leading yourself first. What does that mean?
Many of us don't think about leadership in the context of self. You mention the word leadership and everybody thinks, boy, I can hardly wait to be a leader because then I get to influence and lead other people. But when you think about leadership in terms of leading self first, then you think about, okay, what do I need to do to prepare myself to lead other people? Who am I as a person? What are my values? How do I want to live my life? And then that leads you down a path of how you make decisions.
In your experience, how has the culture of an organization led to the development of leadership in that organization?
Well, culture is real, it's authentic, it's transparent. When there's a problem to be solved, or when something is happening in an organization that needs to be dealt with, the culture forms the basis of how you make decisions.
You've been talking about the connection between a company's core values and its leadership that comes from that. Can you give some specific examples?
As a leader, when you say something, you better mean it. You better live it. Because people are always looking at it. They want to know whether you're going to stand up, whether you're going to live by what you say. So if you say, I'm an honest person, right, and that's one of your values, and the organization says, our culture is about honesty. We never lie to each other, even when the truth is difficult. We always deliver the truth, and that better be how you behave.
In relation to everything that we've been talking about, does the size of an organization play any part?
I remember one time we were having a meeting at Starbucks and somebody said, well, we're just getting too big for people to all attach to the organization, to really have the emotion and the passion and the purpose. And I said, when we get to that stage, it's all over. Because you can never have a reason why people don't come first. They just do. And size is not an excuse.
Can you name 3 things that a leader needs to be a success?
Yeah, first one is a desire to serve. A desire to serve others, the people in their organization. The second one is a clear understanding of who they are as people. And then the third thing is a person that just gives trust and love before they get it. It doesn't mean that there still isn't accountability and there still isn't an expectation of performance. But the idea that as leaders, we're there to serve, to knock down the hurdles, to make it easier for our people to do their work. That creates a whole different kind of organization than the organization that's run by an autocrat that expects to be served. So bricks and mortar, it's about serving.
On this week's segment of The Desk, Phyllis Campbell of JP Morgan Chase and Richard Tate of Boom Boom Brands share their personal experiences and views on the topic, the bricks and mortar of leadership.
Well, welcome to The Desk. Our topic is the bricks and mortar of leadership. Phyllis, how do you think about that?
Well, it's a great subject, and I like this subject because a favorite expression of mine is, it's not about the org chart. It really is about culture and values. I'm going to give you an example maybe from my own life. I'm a director of Nordstrom.
Woo!
Yay,
Love Nordstrom.
Thank you. And, part of it is that I do think what makes Nordstrom successful is an inverted pyramid, it's called. The org chart looks like this, and what's at the top is the customer.
For sure.
And customer-facing people. So what Nordstrom really says, though, that makes it all the more powerful, which gets to the culture piece, is, use your best judgment. So use your best judgment with making decisions around the customer. And so that's really an example, I think, of where a different org chart, but it's the culture and values that really permeate the company in the customer-facing world. So you live in a different world. What's your experience?
Well, it's very interesting because it's kind of similar from large organizations to small organizations in terms of that focus on culture. For me, leadership starts with the definition of a mission, the values that support that mission, the behaviors that reinforce those values, and whether it's a small company or a large company, often a rallying cry is the thing that defines that culture. So for me, I love Apple and Think Different. I love the Mini and Let's Motor. For Cranium, we had Everyone Shines, and from that mantra, we defined the culture and built and recruited people that represented that culture. So often for me, the culture starts with that vision and that mission, but it's all about recruiting the right people that will have the behaviors that reinforce that mission.
Fair point. Does structure get in the way sometimes of that?
Sure. You know, right now we're having a debate about titles, and I'm like, forget titles, let's go, because at the speed that we have, in your world it's very different. When we went to get a checking account at first in a bank, because I was called the Grand Poobah at Cranium, no one would give me a checking account because I had the wrong title. But structure does matter, and it helps with decision making.
Sure. Well, same thing. I mean, I think in a bank we always joke that we give titles instead of money, but I think the point is, you know, if I look at my own bank, there is some similarity between what we're talking about. The org chart is very important. Structure is important when you're a very large organization, but at JP Morgan Chase, probably the most powerful thing is what we say about culture, and that's do the right thing. It means do the right thing by your customers, your communities, and then other successful things will follow. So it really is a lot about, I think we agree, culture and values at the end of the day.
So the key takeaways on the bricks and mortar of leadership, we'd say define a culture, create a mission, values, reinforce those values with the right behaviors.
And I think certainly, to your point, hire the right people. And I think, though, have an organizational chart and structure where you need it as well, because there is a center that probably is needed for decisions. But in the end, it is about culture and values that really are the glue.
The bricks and mortars of leadership. That's it from the desk.
Thanks for joining us.
Firmly believing in the value of a business plan and the importance of a well-defined organizational structure has been a recipe for success for Molly Moon's homemade ice cream. From the first day of business in the spring of 2008, Molly Moon hit the ground running and hasn't looked back. And the ice cream? Delicious.
I never in a million years thought I would be running an ice cream shop. When I started, it was 7 of us. And I made all the ice cream, and I thought I was gonna manage all the employees, and then opening day was insane. I had to stay here every night the first week we were open and make ice cream until 3 or 4 in the morning, just to keep ice cream in the shop. And I had to do like an immediate boom of hiring. This company is really run by an amazing group of young people. For the most part, it's young women. We have like maybe 5 guys on staff out of 47 employees. But we love the guys, but for some reason, young women apply to work at ice cream shops and young men don't as much. And I sort of think in terms of an organizational chart all the time because I was the executive director of a political nonprofit. So I was very used to like management structures. So we do have an org chart. I have also learned in leadership trainings that you should never manage more than 6 people. And we do have a streamlined structure where there are no management bottlenecks. And I think that's important to keep things running smoothly and efficiently. We collaborate a lot. We get around the dining room table every Monday morning and we talk about what fruits are in season, what flavors we can come up with together. And it's my final call because I'm the boss, but it's a really fun participatory conversation. And I think that when you involve people in the decision-making process, they're gonna own it. A lot of startups get carried away with early success, and I think that my values have helped me. I know that I've grown really fast, but I also have said no to a lot of opportunities. My goal was not to create an ice cream empire that's nationally franchised. My goal was to create community gathering places that are sort of the old-fashioned ice cream shop with a modern, fresh, very Seattle feel that uses the values of the community to make the product and sell the product and make a profit. Well, when I think about what's next and sustainability for my company, I really just take it baby steps. I have 2 shops and an ice cream truck. They're doing well. I could open a 3rd shop in Seattle, which I'll probably do next year, and it will probably do well. Sustainable growth for my company means growing in small, concentric circles. I love ice cream. I've eaten ice cream almost every day since I was 5. And I do think that passion for your product and passion in general is really important if you're gonna be a business owner. And I think it's really important to success.
Stay tuned for more of Fostering Leadership.
Time now for our mentorship segment. Pay It Forward brings you another inspiring story. A seasoned graduate of University of Washington, Artie Buerk loves taking time to sit down with each year's new mentees, one of the most recent being Christopher Lindquist, a banker who came to the Foster School with his sights set on a change.
He'd be a good person for you to talk to, but he is the founder of InterWest, which is, I think, one of the top 10 venture capital firms in the country.
I came from commercial banking before school and wanted to transition, hopefully, into the investment banking, private equity side of the world. And it sounds like that'd be an easy transition from commercial banking to investment banking, but it's not.
It's kind of this process of strategic thinking, and it starts with having a vision. And then the second phase is looking at the present. When he first came in, I know he was focused on my overhead projector and thought I was from the Pleistocene era.
To have a mentor that has a lot more experience and brings maybe a little bit of an old school perspective to the business is actually good and refreshing, because so much of what we focus on now is the speed of business and the technology, when really I think Artie understands that business comes down to people.
I'm a relationship type person. I love to maintain relationships, and when I get one, I keep it generally forever.
I'd say that probably Artie's greatest skill is his ability to network and to connect with people, in the fact that he tracks that network, and that he knows what everyone and anyone is doing at any given time.
If you keep the relationship, once you build it, you never know when it's going to come into play. If you go out and look at the number of University of Washington graduates out in the world, there's about 300,000 of them, and they constitute an incredible network.
You meet some of the most fascinating people in the world by just asking questions and asking them to talk about themselves. And I think networking has a bit of a negative connotation, but really it's just about meeting people. And it's a lot of fun. You never know when you're going to call back on them and they're going to be able to help you out, or they're going to call you and you can help them out.
Coming up next, our business leader feature story. This week we spend time with the president and CEO of REI, Sally Jewell, who started climbing mountains when she was 15. And although she never pictured herself as an executive, she's been an excellent fit for this business.
I started my career as an engineer in oil and gas. I then spent 19 years in commercial banking, and I've been at REI now for close to 11. And there's a common thread that runs through businesses in terms of how do you get the work done? How do you create an environment where really smart people choose to work? And how do you create a culture where people are moving in the same direction? And that's really consistent no matter what business you're in. I think an organization's structure is really designed to help facilitate decision making and role clarity. At REI, we certainly have an organizational chart. People know what their jobs are. But more importantly, we have a decision-making model that clarifies our roles as we make decisions. That clarity is enormously helpful. So as you're building skills in leaders, as they're coming up through the ranks of an organization, you're trying to prepare them for greater authority. The best thing that you can do is have clarity around how decisions are made. I'd say one of the key elements to creating a really strong culture here is an open door policy that we've had for years. That creates an environment where smart people can bring their whole brain to work. Once in banking, I had a person tell me, Sally, it's as simple as this. If you treat me like I have a brain, I'll use it. And I think REI does a great job of treating people like they have brains. I think we have an environment where leaders listen and they make adjustments, and that helps build leadership skills throughout the organization. REI has been enormously proud of being named on the Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For in America list, not just because we feel we're a great employer, but because 2/3 of the score that places you there is interviews with a broad cross-section of employees that are completely anonymous to us. So it's how they feel about working here. And one of the things that I get most excited about is employees feel really good about the quality of the leader that they work under in the organization. I think leadership really comes out in people when they are in a situation where an organization needs guidance. And that's when you need to listen, you need to be respectful of people around you, and take in all information, but actually be prepared to stand up and make a decision that helps stabilize an organization. So leadership is the only ship that doesn't pull into a safe port during a storm.
Okay, it's time now for our quiz. Let's find out what you've learned and what you think you know. Go to our website, take our quiz, and see how you do. Each week we'll have a new quiz on leadership based on the theme of our show.
The formal organizational chart clearly specifies all of the positions and linkages among those positions that are critical for effective organizational performance. True or false? As organizations become very large, it is simply not possible for employees to identify with the organization because the organization has become too complex and varied in terms of its mission and values. True or false? Prior evidence indicates that senior executives who have educational backgrounds, training, and experience in a specific industry will not be successful in running a business in a completely different industry. True or false? Go to our website, take our quiz, and see how you do. Each week we'll have a new quiz on leadership based on the theme of our show.
Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Next week we'll tackle one of the biggest challenges of leadership, change. Sometimes it's about changing organizational structures or systems in order to survive in tomorrow's world. Sometimes the ground will shake from rapid or uncontrolled growth and will put a company in peril. And what if the ground has already been shaking and you're in the midst of chaos? Tune in next week to find out more as we share some ground-shaking stories. We'll talk about the rise of new media, the ups and downs of real estate, the rapid growth of a small business, and international commerce and safety. All these stories and more when we see you next week for Fostering Leadership.
Fostering Leadership was made possible by the generous donations of the Foster Foundation and Artie and Sue Buerk. To find out more about Fostering Leadership, go to our website, uwtv.org/fosteringleadership.